Hello and welcome to the Midwest Motoring Podcast sponsored by Hagerty. My name is Matt Pesiconis. I am your host, and I am joined via Zoom call by my co-host and good friend, Mike Andreski. Mike, how you doing, buddy?
Good, Matt. How are you doing today?
Oh, man, it's just another day in paradise here in Columbus, Ohio. The weather is bad, cold, dreary, dark, but, you know, it gives me hope for when the warmer weather comes around, because this is the best time, I think, to work on maybe a project car, you know, fix your bike, maybe build the world's best off-roading Porsche. But, you know, that's just me. What you do in the wintertime, you know, up here in the frozen white north. It's actually really not all that frozen. It's mostly just cold and dead. I would much rather,
kind of damp.
Yeah. Well, and it's that damp coldness that, like, soaks into your bones and you just feel bleh.
I feel like it's England. Like, this is what England looks like year-round with the overcast and, you know,
who knows?
Sun rays peeking through the clouds every 1 minute of the day.
The sun comes out and you run outside just to soak in a little bit of vitamin D. But we can't complain too much because there is cars to talk about. So on this episode of the Midwest Motoring Podcast, we want to talk about a new bike that's come out from Italy. We're going to talk about a really crazy cool kit car that is going to rival some of the best kit cars out there, well, at least in looks particularly. And then we're going to talk about one of the craziest 911s that has been displayed as of recent dates. And so all of that and more coming up on this episode of the Midwest Motoring Podcast, sponsored by Hagerty.
When we see a beautiful car pass by, we always seem to use a hand signal. The classic thumbs up, the point-and-shoot six-gun finger, the hang-loose thumb and pinky combo. If you've ever flashed one of those, now there's a car club for you. Introducing the Hagerty Drivers Club. With exclusive members-only events, insight on buying and selling, the Hagerty Magazine, and roadside service, the Hagerty Drivers Club gives you a big thumbs up. So keep flashing those fingers.
Same to you!
Just not that one. Join the Hagerty Drivers Club at Hagerty.com today.
All right, and we're back. Thank you for Hagerty's support. Go check out their Hagerty Drivers Club for sure. That's a great option if you've got anybody in your family or if you're a car enthusiast. Like, just go click on it. It's $45 a year for the starting level, or you can even sign up for the test drive and get a couple cool free features. But seriously, once you get part of the Hagerty Drivers Club, there's a bunch of crazy cool discount partners in there. I saw Brembo is now a discount partner with Hagerty Drivers Club, so you get a percentage off on your brakes from Brembo. I might have to do that for the Miata. Mike, you might have to do that after we hit a track day or two this year. So keep that in mind.
For a few cars. Get some on the Miata, Corolla, and the 4Runners.
Yeah, but I definitely wanted to first, we don't talk about them much on the podcast, but both you and I have an affinity for the two-wheeled motor vehicle, the motorcycle, and specifically the fast ones. And so I think a new company, well, not new, but a company out of Italy has come out with a update to a long-beloved motorcycle. Mike, what are we talking about?
We are talking about the Ducati Monster, one of the best-selling motorcycles with Ducati, and really, I think, across the motorcycle platforms. Since that first launch in 1993, they've sold 350,000 units. I know this has been a very popular twin style. What are we talking about? Like the naked bikes. They look great throughout the years, and this one is just a step up from what the prior years were. Matt, do you give us a rundown on the specifics of it?
Yeah, I mean, one of the biggest specifics that I saw, and this really hits home with a lot of motorcycles, especially in the, I think they call like super naked or sport naked bikes, is weight, right? So they make these bikes to be nimble. They make these bikes to be easy to ride, easy to prop up, you know, hold up, all that kind of jazz. And the crazy thing is the Monster was never really a super heavy bike, but they dropped 40 pounds out of this bike, 40 pounds. So now dry, I believe it weighs like 365 pounds. And it's got about 1,100 horsepower. No, it has 111 horsepower, and it has about 9.5. I think that's kilogramma. No, it's got about 69 foot-pounds of torque, so about 93 newton meters of torque. We're going to do that again. So it's got 111 horsepower, which is about 82 kilowatts, and it's got about 93 newton meters or 69 foot-pounds, of torque at 6,500 RPM. Max RPM on this is about 10,000, so it doesn't rev out too fast, but it is a twin, so they
a lot of low-end grunt too, I would say, with that.
Ton of low-end grunt. I mean, I'm looking at their torque curve, and it literally looks just flat. So that's
always great.
Always torque, always powerful, always in the power band. That also means that you're not going to have to downshift as many. You're not going to have to click down, 3 cogs to get up and go on the freeway. You can just kind of roll into the power. The V-twins have always had really good power, but I always felt like they were a little bit harder to drive, based on like I just felt like they could stall easy down low RPM, whereas I was used to my 4-cylinder, which I could just do whatever I want. I could just get going from the get-go with just a roll out of the clutch. I didn't even have to really give it any throttle.
I definitely know there is a difference between the twins, 3 cylinders, and then your inline 4s with the launching and so forth. Noticing when I was driving a twin, they did seem a little bit different type of throttle on your launches, which once you get used to the bike and understand its characteristics, you'd be fine. But definitely with those types of numbers, this is going to be a great everyday bike. And with it being Ducati, it's going to handle well. 40 pounds on a street bike is a huge amount of savings. It's going to drastically change the way that
I'm the heaviest thing on that bike almost.
Yeah, so I mean, a lot of people will be. It's just it's going to be a great bike. They've been great. I've ridden several of them. They're fun. They're fantastic bikes. Handle well.
Shout out to our buddy Ivan. He's got a monster out there. I think, does he still have it, or did he get rid of it?
He still has it. He's been doing some
Keep
upgrades to it.
Don't be like us. Don't get rid of it. But
I miss my bike.
I miss it too. I think I'm gonna get like a Grom or something. Just
I know you
silly.
miss my bike.
I do miss your bike. A little diversion from our topic, but I told Mike my like dream bike was a Triumph Daytona 675R in white with the Öhlins dampers. And lo and behold, what bike does he buy when I bought like a cheap like Lerner Honda 600 RR? He buys the brand new 675R. Now the funny story about that is we went to this place, Thiel's Wheels, was it right?
Yeah, it was up in Upper Sandusky.
Upper
Ohio.
Sandusky. I don't know if they're still there anymore, but
so
we went in and the guy was showing Mike just a regular 675, and it was red. It was a gorgeous color, and he didn't really like red, so he's like, well, but it's a good price, whatever. And then I noticed that one of the grab handles for the front brake was missing the end cap. So it's just like somebody dropped it and it snapped off. And I said, hey, the brake handle's broken, man. Like, that's lame. You said this bike's brand new. It looks like it fell over. And the guy's like, oh, that's, yeah, well, what we'll do is we'll just pull it off the one we got in the back that's still in the wrapping. And I said...
You said the white one in the back.
The white one in the back. I said, and knowing kind of a little bit about Triumphs and like their color schemes, I was like, what do you mean you have a white one in the back? And he goes, oh, yeah, we just got a new one. It's white in the back. And so we, of course, went and looked at it, and it was a 675R white, pearlescent white, with little red accents and the gold Öhlins dampers. I was very unhappy that they were keeping it from us.
Got a great price on that. It was put 18,000 miles on that bike in 3 years.
Yeah, it was a good bike. You definitely rode yours far more than I rode mine, but
to digress.
Yeah, going back to the Monster, we rode our buddy Ivan's Monster, and the amazing thing was the upward torque. Like, it didn't rev out. Like, our bikes revved for days, and it didn't rev out. It just wanted to get up and move as quickly as possible. But it was hard to drive, and as my cousin used to tell me, you got to drive these things like you stole them, especially the V-twins. Just, you got to get on it real hard to keep it from stalling, or be a little bit more ginger. I was used to that 4-cylinder inline Honda motor that literally you could just bog for days. So I think it's a great bike. It's great looking. I don't know if I like the graphics that they have on it. There's some ones without the sticker packs that look pretty cool, but Ducati's always looked sexy. They have a great style to them, a lot of new technologies. And that's the other great thing, is that the lowest model, like even I don't remember what the cylinder displacement is on this. But like it's going to have all the tech features. So it's going to have the wheelie control. It's going to have the ABS corner balance or the corner ABS. So all the cool stuff that's going to keep you on the bike. I definitely think it needs to be the Ducati Red. But they do also have a Monster Plus.
It is a 937cc, so it's almost a liter bike.
Yeah, it's a little bit bigger than the 812 or 810 that it was.
Yeah, so they're upping displacement with it. I do like Matt was saying, I like the clean looks on these. I don't like the big sticker packs on them. I think it's just an extra, takes away from the beauty of the bike itself, the engines, the transmission, your exhaust, your routings, and all that. Just the naked fairing bike. I like those looks. They're comfortable bikes too.
Yeah.
I know Matt and I both had sports bikes. I mean, the 675R is an aggressive stance on there.
Yours was far more aggressive than mine.
Oh, yeah. I remember going on a 2.5 hour ride and, leaning one side and then you had to switch over, lean the other side. I had to stretch the back out. So you had to accelerate and, kind of pop it in neutral and coast for a little bit and just kind of sit up and hopping on one of these. And you do sit up upright a lot more. You do get a lot more wind in your face too because of the naked bike.
Yeah, you're a little bit more upright. A lot of guys will put small wind deflectors up on the kind of gauge area, and that helps a little bit. But yeah, it's just kind of the way you're sitting. Instead of being aerodynamic leaned over, you're going to sit a little bit more upright, which causes less wrist damage. So you're going to get a lot less vibration in your wrist.
Lower
back's going to forgive you a lot quicker. But I
think these are good bikes that you can go on a long ride with, and you can still take it on the back country roads.
You can still take them on the track. I see people all the time take some really cool super naked bikes on the tracks, like the Yamahas and the Triumphs and whatnot. And I think this is going to be another great one. So yeah, I think it's a good looking bike. It definitely doesn't look as Yabo-ish as some of the older monsters, but I think it looks a lot more sophisticated, a lot more sleek. Obviously a lot lighter, and I'm excited to see what it can do, but I really miss my bike.
So if we get a new stimulus check for the $2,000, we should buy motorcycles.
I mean, you could probably find a used Grom for like $800, especially right now.
You might be able to find a Ducati. I mean, it's going to be a little bit over 2,000. I forget what Ivan paid for his. It wasn't too much for it. I know it's a few years old, but it hardly was ridden. And it was a reasonably priced bike, and it holds its value, especially as it gets older. I know a lot of these old bikes. My family goes up to vintage motorcycle weekends every year at Mid-Ohio.
Yeah, the MA Vintage Motorcycle Days.
Yes, and you see the bikes that my dad used to ride. As you see him now, and he's like, this back in the day, I had one of these, and it was $1,000, and people are asking like $17,000, $18,000, $25,000, depending on the bike and the model and the conditions.
I mean, some of those bikes, though, are extremely rare, and
some of the
vintage bikes are getting a lot harder to get. We talked about a couple on the Bull Market review, which, by the way, if you're a Hagerty Drivers Club member, the Bull Market issue should be on your doorstep this week. I just got mine. It's a great magazine. A lot of cool articles in there this time around. Maybe we'll talk about a couple. But, definitely join the Hagerty Drivers Club. I don't know if I can say that enough. Join it. It's got a lot of good benefits. Speaking of Hagerty, we pulled this article off of Hagerty's website. We talked about it at the beginning. Winter is kind of a great time if you are a car guy or gal, car person, non-denominational car person. If you like motoring and if you like tinkering, kit cars are a really good way to not only have a car of your dreams, but maybe put in either a little bit more power, a little less power, maybe something more reliable, or just cheaper. And there's been a couple really crazy ones out there. Factory 5 is known to do some really cool stuff. There's a thing called the Exoset, which is basically an inside-out Mazda Miata, where they take a frame and you bolt all the pieces back to it, and it looks really cool. But we've Hagerty stumbled upon another kit car that, coming from the UK, looks pretty dang cool, especially if you are a vintage F1 fan. The company's called Ansted, yeah, I think it's Ansted. They made a vehicle called the 158 Tipo, the Tipo 158. Mike, tell us a little bit about it.
So as we always been saying for years now, Miata is always the answer, and that's exactly what they're making this base car out of. So the kit is going to be priced, and they're going to start delivery in the end of 2021. The kit's $11,500, and that's going to include like chassis. It's going to have the exterior pieces, the body, pretty much all the framework for it. So you would need some donor pieces from a NB Miata.
But what's it based on, Mike?
It is based on the old. I should have started with that. You are right. It's based off the old Alpha 158 F1 car back in 1938.
Mm-hmm.
So it's that single style, thin-wheeled racing cars. They look real cool. It's pretty much like the cylinder shaped. It's just a big cylinder
the big
with
cigar
with
shape.
the exposed wheels at the end. Yeah. So they look really cool. Everything looks good on it. Their parts they're going to be making and everything coming off the Miata, so they're going to be pretty exchangeable. I know one of the hardest things to do is like your rack and pinion, and all that's going to be from the Miata, so it's not going to be as hard to get spare parts if something were to break. Miatas are a dime a dozen, especially with the NAs and Bs that have very similar chassis, motor train, etc. So the price tag on it isn't too far off if you could find a good donor MB and start piecing it together. And as Matt was saying, probably next year would be a good winter project for this one. But
probably not this winter. But I mean, this thing looks pretty cool. So I misspoke. It's called the Ansted's Tipo 184. And what they're doing is, so Alfa Romeo at one point in time started kind of changing the way that they did their numbers and their car names and their vehicle names. And so the original Alfa Romeo 158, what they do is they put the displacement first and then the number of cylinders. So it's 1.5 liter inline 8. So 158. And so the Tipo is now called the 184, meaning it has 1.8 liters and 4 cylinders. So this particular build's using the second generation Miata NB for all the Miata heads out there. And yeah, I mean, they're taking the front rack, the front control arms, lower control arms, the engine, the tranny, the steering rack, the clutch master cylinder, the brake pedal, the throttle pedal, the gauge cluster, obviously you're going to use the running, the computer, and all the wiring harnesses and the rear subframe. So you're basically left with a shell of a Miata. It's the outside exterior. So if your Miata maybe has some rust in the middle, or if it's gone, ballistic, this might be a great way to revive some of those old Miatas and really continue with a nostalgic piece, especially because, like you said, these vintage F1 cars, the kind of cylinder or cigar shape, just look amazingly sleek. This particular one, they did a really good job of adhering to kind of the older principles of these F1 cars, but you're using newer suspension, you're using newer brakes. Now, they do have the skinny tires still on it, which I don't know how well this thing goes around a corner, but I'm also wondering how light this thing might be. Because it is literally, they give you a tube frame that is the entire chassis internal of the car, and then they give you the exterior, what looks like fiberglass pieces.
Yeah, they don't look like they're going to be too heavy as the car itself is. The design, I mean, you don't have a lot of safety feature weight too, airbags.
It's a kit car. A lot of kit cars don't have airbags.
The point being is there's a lot of material that's missing that the NA would, or the Miata would have had prior to that. You're cutting weights, and Miatas were already lightweight cars as they are.
Interestingly enough, the original 158 was a supercharged inline V8, or I'm sorry, inline 8, not an inline V8, an inline 8. And the original Formula One car only produced 200 horsepower. So the Miata engine's not far off from that original inline 8 horsepower. Now, I'm sure sound and visceral intensity is not there, but I think, there's a ton of things you can also do to a 1.8 liter Miata engine. So once you put in that driveline, there's a ton of other things that you could do as long as it fits within the shell of the car. And they also include like the exhaust manifold, which I was looking at pictures of the exhaust running down the left side of this car, and it looks like the resonator is right by where your left arm would be. And I would have, it'd be so tempting to just put your left arm outside of the cockpit right on top of that resonator. Oh, that would be you'd burn yourself so hard. That would be horrible. That's like stepping, like when you come off of a motorcycle and you accidentally have like your pant leg hikes up and you touch the exhaust
pipe.
Oh, that's a bad burn. Yeah, you do that one time and then you never do it again.
So I just found the weight of this is going to be 1,543 pounds.
Holy moly.
700 kilograms. So 1,500 pounds for, I think those Miata engines were, 155, 160 for the MBs?
Horsepower-wise?
Yeah.
I think they were like 120 or something like that.
You have a good weight to power ratio still. I mean, it's
lighter than the Miata.
And it's approximately a 55-45 weight distribution split too. A little bit more to the front due to the engine transmission being more over the front wheels or placed further front than it would be with the body weight of the driver and then the axle.
Could you imagine putting in a 2J, like an inline six, like a turbo inline six? That'd be so much fun.
Somebody was probably going to do it. Just put a Hellcat engine in it because you shove them in Miatas.
Well, I don't think a Hellcat engine would fit in that.
It's going to be too wide. Sure, I'm just being.
But yeah, but like any straight six would do wonders up there. Put the RB26 up there, the Nissan. I almost said Mitsubishi. Oh God, I'd be relegated to the bin of has-beens. You're not a car fan. The RB26 Nissan motor. I think. Nissan. Datsun. It's a Datsun. So it's a gorgeous car. Do yourself a favor. Go look up old photos of the Alfa Romeo 158. It's just a gorgeous car. I remember seeing something similar to this on Top Gear previously. I can't remember the race car that it was based off. It was another Formula One car back of this vintage, but it had, I think, a Jaguar straight 6 in it, or straight 8. I can't. Whatever. It sounded really, really good. It looked really, really good. I could imagine this in I know everyone out there who's an Alfa fan, I don't know the Alfa colors, but I just keep seeing the red of a Ferrari, like Rosso Corsa red on this would look fantastic. I know you guys are going to correct me in the comments of what the Alfa, red or color would be, but bright red. One of these would look fantastic. So if you have an NB Miata that might be falling apart, this might be a good alternative to help save its life. Do a little bit of a heart transplant into this vehicle and enjoy the road for sure. I mean, everything swoops back to that long, drawn-out tail. It's gorgeous. It's gorgeous.
I like the details because, as you were saying, the original one was an 8-cylinder, a straight 8. So the exhaust pipe on it has 2 little empty headers, and then on the front
on either side, yeah.
Yeah, so it's just the small little detail on that. It's it actually looks like it has a straight 8 in it instead of a 4-cylinder. Kind of just fits on the body. So it the small stuff like that, I feel like it pays a lot to exactly, it's car the guy took time to make. It's going to be something that a lot of people are going to look at and be like, oh, that's really cool. I know there's a kit car that drives around our area, and the guy, it looks a lot like one of the old F1 cars like this, and I always see it, and I was like, man, that guy loves it so much. And he drives it everywhere. I saw it in the winter a lot.
Could you imagine driving this thing in the winter?
Yeah, it was the open cockpit, little windscreen and stuff, and he was sitting at a red light with his toboggan on and 15 coats, and he was just smiling as happy.
You'd be
as
very
he could
happy if your transmission was running hot because it's like your heated seat right there is a warm transmission. Jeez.
No, this would be something fun. I mean, I know there's a lot of NBs out there, especially in the Mazda marketplaces that we follow, and a lot of people are doing part outs a lot of the times. And you could get a subframe engine and all the parts that go with this for relatively cheap. I mean, you could probably build this by yourself if you're a good mechanic. Starting price for the kit $11,500. I mean, you could get this under $15,000 for a nice looking car, and the engine is going to run forever.
I mean, I'm sure you'll have to spend a little bit more to get the bits and bobs and everything to look nice. The one pictured has a wood grain steering wheel and all the dials and everything are nice, and it's got nice stainless and everything. So I'm sure there's a little bit more that you could do. And with any of these, your wallet size is your only limiting factor. But you brought up an interesting question and statement earlier, Mike, is that you think that this might negatively impact the NB Miatas, the survivability, because a lot of people are creating kit cars that they go after Miatas as donor cars.
And that's one thing that Miata's always the answer. And as we're looking at them, they're hard to find clean examples of the original NAs and Bs. I know Mazda's still making a lot of the parts for these cars, but eventually they are going to get crashed, they are going to get totaled, they are going to get parted out, and people are going to start buying them and building different projects with. So, for instance, a lot more people could see this kit and be like, hey, this is a really cool kit, kind of like what we're talking about. Some of them might take apart a junked, salvaged Miata and go from there. Some people might have one that's relatively rusted out and decide to part that MB out. With the Miatas, there's only so many that were ever made, so I can see, and maybe depending on how popular this is, how many people actually want to start making kit cars, I can see potentially. I don't think it's going to be as big as I initially thought it would be. I'm interested to see how many these kits are made, how many are going to be out there.
Mm-hmm.
But as it is an old sports car, everybody loves to drive them. They're great cars. The NAs still are competitive in a lot of motorsports.
Yeah. I mean, you see them a ton at track days. So it's, yeah, I don't know if I agreed with you when you said that it would negatively impact the, Miata, because the Miata available surplus stockpile of pieces. But I do know that a lot of these cars that get turned into donor cars are either part out cars where they have there's no hope for the body to be replaced, and that the work that's necessary to do on the body or the frame or any of that to correct it is far more than the car's worth. So I think that this is a great alternative to maybe seeing some of those just sit in a junkyard. And I'm excited to see people take these types of older cars, not old, but, older daily or older, used very frequently sports cars, and turn them into, something better. The sum of its parts far exceeds what it originally started as, and it gives kind of new life to all that. But who knows? Maybe everybody will like to do this, and then they'll take all the MB Miatas will go up in price, and then I'll sell mine for a hefty profit. But that probably won't happen.
Keep your Miata.
Keep the Miata. So
you already sold your bike, and you're so sad about that.
I know.
So you have to keep the Miata.
it's I'm sad. I'm sad today. But I want to get happy because there's also a new craze going around, and I don't know if you guys have ever looked up, but a lot of people have been turning their Porsche 911s into Baja-inspired cars. Lifted, they do about a 3 to 4 inch lift on the 911. They put in a snorkel. They put in better shocks, better brakes. Still the naturally aspirated Porsche motor that they came with, that air-cooled Porsche motor. But at the same time, because of all the modifications that they do, it's built to go off-road. It's built to go through the sand dunes and Baja and things like that. Well, one of the companies out there that probably makes one of the nicest Porsches, Singer, and actually, I don't know if you can even call it a Porsche because I forget how they call. I think it's called Body in White. They basically get a body or a donor car that just has a VIN, takes it in, and then they modify it to be a Singer, right? So it doesn't really even start as a Porsche in some cases. In other cases, they do use a donor car. But recently, Singer has released a twin turbocharged Baja Monster. This thing looks ridiculous. So it's basically a lifted almost 911 turbo, and they released pictures of this thing just destroying like a beach and destroying the dunes. It's built like a tank as well. So they've put a ton of effort into suspension. It actually has dual rear shocks like a jumping Baja truck. I mean, they've definitely gone to the nine. Like, it's just an amazing car. Mike, I'd love to get your thoughts on just some of the details and stuff they put under this concept car.
Yeah, so it looks amazing. I like what they're doing with these two. It's the rally inspired, as we're seeing like a lot more like Toyota with their GR making a rally car coming out. We got this guy going on. I've seen people lift Miatas even. You know, we were just talking about one. We'll just carry it over a little bit too. But there is a market for it, and this is really, really cool. The design looks aggressive. It looks like an off-road vehicle, and it can and will be capable to be able to do these feats. I'm really impressed with the build quality on it. The power and everything's going to be there. I'm sure it's going to be a great handling car for the off-road adventures as well. And the interior, I really like that too. It's got a full cage in there, digital clusters. It looks like a comfy place to be, especially
I
as
mean,
you're going
honestly, yeah, for going over jumps and stuff, it doesn't look half bad on the inside. And Singer,
No.
if you've never checked out a Singer Porsche, like these cars are multi-$100,000 to almost multi-million-dollar Porsches that are built up from the ground up. Now, this prototype is basically loosely based on the Porsche 959 prototypes. It uses a 3.6-liter twin-turbo flat six, producing 450 horsepower and 420 foot-pounds of torque. It actually has twin water-to-air intercoolers and charge coolers for each cylinder bank, which is pretty dang cool. This engine's based off of the 964, but it's basically totally developed in-house. The six-cylinder is paired with a 5-speed sequential dog box for clutchless upshifts, but the Singer says it will work as well for a traditional H-pattern manual and a paddle shift sequential system. So it's all-wheel drive. It's got 3 mechanical limited slips, as well as the turbo's all-wheel drive system. It also has bespoke ACS tuning. It's got FIA spec roll cages and seats with custom digital gauge clusters, GPS navigation for the co-driver. Oh, and it also has a hydraulic handbrake for those handbrake turns that we all love so much. I mean, this thing seems like a Gymkhana car. This seems like something that Ken Block would be running around in, for sure.
I mean, this looks like it's going to be able to go out and win a WRC tomorrow. It looks like it's a legit race car. It looks like it's a legit rally car. And from what they're showing, what they're saying, it's going to be. I just wish I could afford or drive one. It's just, they're not going to be cheap for sure. I don't know if they have an estimated price for it, but probably somewhere to like $500,000 or something. Matt, you think that's pretty close to what you'd be assuming for this?
For this, well, this is a initial prototype. I'm guessing this thing's probably close to $1 million. I know that some of their nicer Porsches push almost $2 million. So this thing, especially being a test mule, they probably wouldn't let it out of their garage for anything less than a couple mil. But
Well,
you know,
I mean, like
hopefully
when it came into production.
Yeah, I mean, if you like this design and if you kind of like this idea, there's a couple other companies out there. So you can look up Safaris from Lehkeen, Lehkeen, and there's a couple other builders out there. I know Matt Farah from the Smoking Tire has one, but they're cool. I think I don't know if I would want to own a 911 like this. It's definitely something that if you own a 911 and do this, you are making a statement to people. And that's that you love rally or you love the design. Now, I will say that when I watched all of Matt Farah's stuff on it, he said it's super comfy, super easy to drive in the city. He drives it a ton, and one of the reasons why is because like it's got ground clearance. He doesn't got to worry about it scraping or hitting a pothole or one of those, parking, things that go up at the front of the car. I don't know what you want to call those, the parking markers. But like he just drives the heck out of it, and I think a lot of people really do love them. It's just maybe not my style. This one also looks like it's got like mustache wings up front, like stem off the front, like flippers. They look like
It's got some
pretty
sort
big.
of arrow on the front bumper. I don't know exactly what they are, the purpose of it. I'm sure they're beneficial.
I'm sure it's to keep that front end from lifting.
As much as you can. There's not really a lot on the front end. It's just more or less like they took the front bumper off. They put these little fins there, and then you have the headlights, which I'm assuming obviously ground clearance.
Yeah. Well, and what's also crazy is that like the engine, if you go look up pictures of this thing, it looks freaking awesome because like the rear suspension. Not only does it have a huge amount of travel, but they also gave it 2 coilover packs in the back with external reservoirs on each of the coilovers. Like that's Baja stuff right there. That's high-end Baja trucks that are designed to go over those like whoop jumps at like 110 miles an hour.
Oh, this thing is built for racing. They kept that in there. It's not something just built for looks. It's has its purpose of being an off-road car. I think they did a really good job. And kind of speaking on Matt's take, I think this would be something too. It's like you have a 911 or you have one of these sports cars and you get it to lift it and it makes it fun still. Where if you're driving around every day and you're enjoying it, it's comfy, it's softer suspension, you don't feel every single bump going through your spine as you hit like driving over a penny or something. Where it can be a little bit more enjoyable to take out instead of like a 911 GT3 where it's just more race car-ish. Mm-hmm. So you can like drive it, you can have fun with it. You don't have to worry about, oh, can I make it up this person's driveway? No, I'm going to scrape this or I'm going to scrape that. Or
I mean, that's why they invented the nose lift, but that's not on like vintage cars, right? That's on newer stuff. And the crazy thing about the Singer Porsches or any of the Baja Porsches that you see out there is that it takes, like I said, it takes a special someone to make a statement with that 911. But they are making a statement. And if you see one of those 911s at a car, like a Cars and Coffee or a car show, there is not probably going to be another one anywhere near it because they're so rare and cool. Like, I think it's cool, but I just don't know if I'd want to do that to my 911. But they definitely make a statement, and they are definitely eye-catching. And that's just one of the things that you're not going to see them all the time. Now they are gaining popularity, but I think there's a lot of popularity in putting big, heavy off-roading tires on just about everything nowadays. We're getting ready for the apocalypse is really what's happening. Is these Porsches are going to be set up for like, going through the desert, when you're trying to outrun the Mad Max style. So
with the gas crisis going on, people got like flamethrowers bolted to their cars,
which doesn't make any sense because if there's a gas crisis and a fuel crisis, why are you burning fuel as a weapon? Right? That's
because we're showing how strong of a group we are.
That we
have
have true.
So much excess that we can just burn it as we chase them down for their fuel and gas.
We're going to burn you with the gas that we're then going to replace with the measly gas that you have. Yeah, there's some logic for you from the Mad Max world. I mean, I love Fury Road. I thought that was a great film. I know that's not a topic we're talking about. We should talk about our favorite automotive movies as a segment.
That'd be fun to talk about.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah. Now, I did want
to
let us know your favorites. Speaking of letting us know, we didn't even get a chance to talk about this in 2020, but we asked you guys to chime in on what you think I should buy as my next car because I was in a bit of an accident and we wrote off my Audi, so it's gone. And I'm looking for the next car, and I'm looking for something to be fun. So I think we're kind of light on time, so I wanted to bring that back up because I think we did get a lot of feedback from a lot of different people. So I wanted to go over a couple of the ones that were mentioned and then also kind of get some feedback from Mike. So one of the very first ones that came up, Richard Henschel, one of my coworkers, put on there the new Charger Hellcat Red Eye wide body. So it's the Charger Hellcat wide body Red Eye, I think it is. I think those things look awesome. I've always been a fan of the Chargers versus the Challengers. I think the Challengers are bulky and two-door, and the styling's good on the Challengers, but I kind of like the sleek, sexy sleeper that the Charger is, and then the wide body just looks fantastic on those things. Plus, who doesn't love some supercharger wine? Unfortunately, I think that I'm trying to get away from the four-door. If I was looking for another daily driver and something to that I could drive all the time, I might look at that. Somebody also mentioned the Chevy SS as well. But Mike, what's your thoughts on would the Charger Hellcat wide body Red Eye be a good choice?
So I went back and pulled the post up. It was the Challenger that he referenced for it.
So did he reference? I know he was probably thinking of the Charger. We were talking about the Chargers. But if he said the Challenger, no, Richard, I will not take the Charger. Or the Challenger. I will not take the Challenger. Charger,
I agree. I agree with you too. I like the Chargers over the Challengers. I like their aggressive, their look, their little wider stance. It's more of the car look for me. Whenever these first came out and they had the Hellcat engine on them when they first debuted, the Challengers and the Chargers, I was like, I would love to have a Charger. Just picking my kid up from school one day and just be like, oh, you know, 800
Hear that
horsepower.
noise?
I can just do a nice old burnout.
Yeah, your son would know you're coming from a mile away.
Everybody would. It just,
Hear that supercharger
you'd
whine.
hear me whining, and then you'd hear me roaring on the way out.
The other
That
crazy thing about the Charger was when the Challenger Hellcat and the Charger Hellcat were released kind of at the same time, the Challenger only could hit like 180, 190 or miles an hour.
Only.
Yeah, only. Well, the Charger could hit 200, I think, in 3, like 203, something crazy. It could go north of 200 miles an hour. A Dodge sedan could go north of 200. I know it was at one time the fastest sedan in the world.
They are quick. The thing I think that you wouldn't like about it would be that its track performance. You definitely would be able to pull away on straights and, you know, a fast straight track, but I think what you're looking for still would be something that can handle the
Yeah.
twisties. And I think with the weight in that car and this suspension geometry wouldn't benefit you as much.
Yeah,
So
I mean, I
that one would
think
be a-
if you went to a track day with a Charger Hellcat, like, or even a Challenger Hellcat, like, you're just in for a hoot of a time. Like, you will have fun. You may get black flagged for drifting all over the place. And yeah, you're absolutely right, Mike. Like, the weight and the suspension, like, they handle really well. And we're not saying that they're slouches, but they are a big, heavy sedan. So it's a sledgehammer, not a scalpel.
Yeah.
So, and we're used to not even scalpels. We're used to are there smaller blades, smaller surgical blades that
little lasers.
Little lasers. That's what Miatas are. They're just little laser beams. Also, I think who came up next? I think it was who was next on that post, Mike?
There was Parker Wall, the Lexus ISF straight V8.
I think it's not a straight V8. I think he's just saying go straight V8, like go with
Yeah,
V8.
that's I was confused whenever I first read that just now. But
Parker,
yes.
you don't know your codes. Yeah, the ISF, man. That I once again looking at like sedans and whatnot. The ISF was always such a cool car. The V8 in it sounded amazing. Toyota developed a pretty beastly V8 for that car. And you have all the nice features of a Lexus. You have all the nice features, the luxury features, the comfort. They don't. I have had the opportunity to drive one around Sebring International Raceway. Great in a straight line, just like I'm sure the Charger would be. But it was a bit of a hoss, a bit of a hefty boy around the turns. She was a thick girl for sure, but I mean that's part of the love. You know, you get one of those cars because you like going fast and you like the feeling of luxury at speed, right? Plus the sound. We heard a couple of those straight piped at one of the Cars and Coffee. Oh my gosh, sounded so good. Dual overhead cams, just such a fantastic little motor. I don't know the horsepower and torques on them anymore, but it was up there for sure. They definitely outpaced my GTO when I had that.
I know Toyota, weirdly enough, they make some good sounding V8s, and there's actually a lot of good sounding cars in general. I know the horsepower on a lot of them is around 416 horses.
Yeah, because
so,
I know like Lexus also made I think it's an IS 400 or something like that, which was like a sleeper big sedan with a massive V8 in it, and they were fast and comfy, rode really well. But again, both of those cars that we're kind of talking about they're on the line of like daily driver that you could drive and have fun, and I don't really need that at the moment because we have 2 daily drivers already. So it's kind of like this should be the fun super fast, or it doesn't even need to be super fast, but like the fun partial car. So yeah, but those were some of the recommendations we had. Somebody recommended a Raptor. I should get an F-150 Raptor, which honestly sounds pretty cool, but I don't need a truck. So
yes, you do. Everybody needs a truck, honestly. Once you have a truck and you get rid of your truck, you're like, I should have kept my truck.
I should have kept the truck. I don't know. We talked about this a little bit previously, but I might have to go with the TRX from Dodge versus a Raptor.
Oh man,
more Hellcat power.
Me personally, what I would do would probably get the old V8 Raptors.
Yeah, you can find those for fairly inexpensive.
Yeah, you could. And I think I like going with the naturally aspirated route with those. As long as you find one that's not beat up too much, I think that would be a good choice for it.
Horrible fuel
like
economy.
them. Horrible choice?
No, horrible fuel economy. That's all I was going to say on that.
Wow, who cares? I mean, if you're getting one of those, you already know what you're going to get into. I think the only downside of going for the early one is the early Ford interiors. You could definitely tell as an older Ford interior would be the limiting factor for me. I know the TRXs are those are like luxury trucks on the inside.
They can be, yeah. I think you can spec them out to be extreme luxury for sure. I have also been told I should look at M4s.
By your one and only.
Yeah. I did look at some M4s. Honestly, one of our members of Hagerty actually told me I should look at M2s more than M4s.
Which I also brought up.
You did. And I think that's not a bad option. I'm still smitten with the 911, but I just don't know which 911 would be great. I also was recommended the R33 Skyline. That could be a really cool classic. If I could find the right one that's not been destroyed or modified. I don't know. If I got one of those, I'd want it to be, like, I know people probably modified them a lot. I'd want it to be lightly modified, maybe like intake, maybe some suspension stuff and like an exhaust. But there's so many bits and bobs that you can't really find over here. My buddy Jeff was actually like, you should get like an old Datsun and then a couple other things for the same amount of money you're looking to spend on something else like a GTR 911. I was like, well, that's not a bad idea either. Get a couple race cars. I just don't know if my wife would be too happy with all the cars in the garage. But yeah, so keep those recommendations coming because we're still searching. I'm saving up during the wintertime to see if we can buy something fun for the summertime. We talked a little bit about how the weather's kind of crappy around here. Good days and good weather will be here sooner than later, and we're super excited to get out there and drive with everybody. And I know that we do. We want to get out and do some track days with all of you. We want to get out and do some rides and some cruises. So be looking for some of those on our Facebook page. We're going to put some stuff up there. But this has been the Midwest Motoring Podcast, episode 29. We're almost to number 30, Mike. We should do something fun for
We're getting old. It could be a chimney.
What? You could be a chimney. What the heck does that mean?
So, remember my 30th? I feel like this is going to have to be a story for our listeners. So I have a
Patreon. We'll put that on
January.
we'll put that story on our Patreon account. No, we don't have a Patreon account. We should have one, but we don't.
Should have a Patreon. So on my 30th birthday.
Oh, you're actually going to tell the story? Oh, geez.
Yeah, I'm going to tell the story. We're out going to a few bars and obviously in January it's cold out.
Mike does not drink normally.
I didn't hear what you said. It kind of
Mike does not drink normally.
I don't. I'm usually pretty sober with my intake. So we were out drinking, and I walk outside, and we're figuring out what we're going to do, and you could see your breath. So I stuck my head straight up into the air, and I started breathing out. I was like, look, guys, I'm a chimney.
It was definitely an interesting birthday for sure. But guys,
30th.
That was the 30th. So maybe we'll have to turn, like you said, maybe we'll make the podcast into a chimney. We'll get it drunk on its 30th.
Good at smoking in a good way.
Go smoke some tires or something, right? Go burn some rubber.
Some tires.
This has been the Midwest Motoring Podcast. Thank you so much for joining us, everyone. We can't wait for more 2021 and content. It's gonna be a really great year. So thanks again. Stay safe. Stay healthy. Keep driving.